Okay, so hello. Um, this is my oral presentation. Um, this feels a little awkward, but today I'm going to talk about zoos and animal sanctuaries, and their key differences. So, while they may seem similar on the surface, their purposes, practices, and impact on animals are vastly different from the other. More importantly, we'll look at why zoos, despite their popularity, do more harm than good. Alright, so first we're going to start with the core purpose. Zoos exist primarily for public entertainment. A lot of them claim to promote education and conservation, but their business model relies on attracting visitors. That often means that putting exotic animals on display regardless of how well they can meet those animals' needs. On the other hand, animal sanctuaries are rescue focused. They provide a safe and permanent home for animals that have been abused, neglected, or retired from entertainment and research. Their goal is rehabilitation and care, not profit. All right. Animal treatment and living conditions. So this is really where the differences really stand out. In zoos, animals are kept in super artificial environments, and the enclosures have definitely improved over time. They are still so small, cramped, and fake. They don't really meet an animal's needs. And for an example, elephants, a common animal at a zoo, they roam up to 30 miles a day in the wild. That's a lot. But in a zoo, they have a few acres, if they're lucky. And there's often more than one of them. So that acreage, it's never enough to compensate for multiple elephants. Okay, so this is gonna sound crazy, but this confinement leads to something called zoochosis. It is a form of mental illness in captive animals. I think we take mental illness very seriously as humans in our society, and so I feel like we should care about zoos. Zoochosis, it's animals will harm themselves, some will even kill themselves, they will pace, they will give themselves headaches by bobbing their head, which is definitely not fun. And these behaviors are signs of deep psychological distress, which I'm sure any of us would feel if we were kept in that small of an enclosure that was nothing like the wild that we were meant to be in. So, in contrast, sanctuaries strive to recreate a more natural habitat. Animals aren't trained to perform, they aren't bred for display or first forced to interact with visitors. They're allowed to live as close to a natural life as possible, which is amazing. It is very rare that you will see an animal in a sanctuary exhibit signs of zoochosis. All right. This topic might be a little uncomfortable, but breeding and exploitation is the next one I want to talk about. So zoos engage in captive breeding, but their goal isn't to support endangered species. I'm sure that you have seen pictures of baby animals and how cute they are and how much you want to go see them and hold them and feed them. That is what zoos want. It's really sad because a lot of the times it's the males, they are forced to ejaculate, which can be extremely painful. And of course, the mothers, they are forced with insemination. A human will force sperm into the female animal's uterus, which, thinking about as a woman, that sounds horrible. I'm sure even men thinking about having a human, if you were an animal, having a human force you to ejaculate, and then oftentimes, because the animals are so stressed after this, they get euthanized because they're not good for crowds anymore, because they're either the mothers are too ugly from pregnancy or the males are too traumatized from forced ejaculation. So on the other hand, the sanctuaries, they do not focus on breeding animals. Their focus is on care, not increasing the animal population that they have in captivity. A lot of animal sanctuaries that do have breeding programs, it's the animals are choosing to breed with each other. There is nothing forced like caused by humans. The most they do is encourage it, put a female in heat and a male in heat in the same enclosure, see what happens. But of course, the second anything goes wrong, a human will step in to help save the animals. And sanctuaries, they really do focus on keeping the mothers as healthy as possible through the pregnancy and birth and postpartum, which is very, very important, because animals do go through postpartum depression like humans do. And especially when they're in any kind of captivity, so even in sanctuaries, it can still become extremely stressful for them. But that is how sanctuaries try to conserve species and bring up their populations globally. All right, so like I said earlier, zoos market themselves as educational, but watching a lion behind glass doesn't teach much about its real behavior or ecosystem. You see, while they may contribute a little bit of education, like you could see how big they are or what they sound like, that's never really enough to justify having them locked away in that. I know a lot of zoos have those little plaques outside with information on them, but that is information you could get from a quick Google search. And that's really, I don't want to say stupid, but if you're going to the zoo for the plaques, then just Google is your best friend. National Geographic is your best friend. So now I'm going to talk about sanctuaries and how they do plan to educate and how they spread awareness. They often spread awareness of animal abuse, the exotic pet trade, and the consequences of keeping wild animals in such tight captivity. They often have resources and nonprofits and donations that you can make to help them, keep the animals safe and provide more education for people. So to conclude, zoos prioritize entertainment and profit, often at the expense of animals they claim to protect. Sanctuaries put animal welfare first, offering safety, dignity, and respect towards the animals. As we become more conscious of how our actions affect other species, we should question the institutions that profit from captivity and support those that truly care for animals. That's all. Thank you.